Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter. And this week on the show, we're talking about UFC Riyadh. It's going down from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And we've got a middleweight title eliminator, so to speak. We've got Israel Adesanya, the former champion, on one side. He's taking on the Russian sniper out of France, right? Nassourdine Imavov. So we've got a fascinating matchup. I'm really excited to see how this one shakes out. But you know how we do it on Bets and Banner. We start at the bottom and work our way on up with a great guest, none other than Just Win Baby in the house. How are you, my man?
Yo, bro. Yeah, feeling good. Glad to be back. Week off. We had some PFL that was interesting with Hughes and the Daggy. But yeah, good to get back to some UFC, man. And some solid fights. It's a good card, man.
Yeah, we didn't go deep on the Paul Hughes position because I was worried that they were going to rob us. They robbed us blind. My man's taking 5 minutes for the head clash. You know, Paul Hughes ready to rumble in the middle, but we won't cry over spilled milk. The goal this year is for me to put my money behind guys that I feel are proven commodities, Rich. And I feel like Paul Hughes is a proven commodity. I feel like he showed why once again on Saturday and didn't get the result he was looking for, but fought well above his price tag. And that's all you're looking for people to do. Merab Dvalishvili did it the week before in the UFC. So that's the goal, to just keep looking for these guys that are going to go out there, proven commodities with a great price tag. And hopefully we can find some spots this week. I'll tell you, Rich, it looks a little bit like UFC slim pickings, right? We're down to 11 fights, and they're getting worse and worse in quality. We lost Ikram and Andre Muniz, two guys that are a little bit more established in the UFC. We've had a bunch of short notice pullouts. Jordan Levitt is off the card. Balaji Oki is also now off the card. So we're going to have to deal with what we've got left. And what we've got first is Hamdy Abdelwahab coming back off suspension. He got one win in the UFC, overturned to a no contest, disappeared off the radar, and now he's back. He's a Northeast guy, I believe, in terms of where he trained. I don't know where he trains now. I have to look at his Instagram. What I will say is I went back and watched his fight that he had with Dante Mays, and you know, it was a back and forth fight, Rich. It was a war. They kind of went out there. I thought he hurt Mays pretty bad early. He took him down, dominated. It's heavyweight, right? They got 5 minutes of cardio on the best of days. The dude came out in round 2. He was getting his ass whooped. He was getting lit up on the feet. He was tired. And then all of a sudden, Dante Mays goes for the worst, like, running takedown attempt you've ever seen, falls to his back, gives him second wind. And then in round 3, Hamdy went out there and pressed the issue. You know, the referee kept taking away positions from him because he's not super active on top, but he is effective at holding guys down. I think they might be a little more lenient with him in Riyadh, so to speak. On the other side, Jamal Pogues' career, pretty solid takedown defense. If you look at the Josh Parisian fight, gave up one there, had 5 of his own. If you look at the Thomas Petersen fight, when he was flat on his back, man, he looked like a turtle, right? He just didn't look like he had too much going on from that position. However, when you saw him defending takedowns throughout most of the fight, the singles and double legs, he was able to fight those off. So now the question is, can he do the same when you got Hamdy's big ass wrapped around your belly, right? He's not going to go for these singles and double legs as far as I'm concerned. He goes for these body locks. He goes for trips. He goes to press people into the fence. And I think he might have a little bit more success than Petersen as a result of that. However, Petersen, the rest of his game is a little bit more full-fledged, right? Like, he went out there and was like, all right, I can't get the takedown, punch him in the body, try and walk him down a little bit. He looked out of sorts, but he kept pushing the action. I don't know if Hamdy's got that in him, honestly. Like, if he's just got to go out there and keep swinging on the feet, he did it at portions of that fight, but there was a point in round 2, it looked like he was ready to check out and go home. So how do you feel about this one, Rich? Kind of a weird fight to get us started. Inexperienced heavyweight against a much more experienced guy, but not the same caliber of athlete, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, the line's super surprising to me. Don't you think if it was in Vegas or California or something that the line would be more in favor of Pogues? And the reason it's a pick'em is because it's in fucking Saudi Arabia. Like, the guy's had almost 3 years off. You saw the suspension. His record was very green anyway before the UFC. And, you know, that fight with Mays, that was a shit show. Like, he did well because the odds were stacked against him. But we know now that he was on all the steroids in the world. So that kind of takes away from his performance. And he's not that great. He's one-dimensional. Obviously, he's a wrestler, Olympic wrestler. You know, shout out to him for that. But he was ready to check out in that Mays fight when he was getting hit. He caught a second wind, came back. And now he's fighting Pogues. And I've been clowning Pogues all week. I've been following him on Instagram. And he puts inspirational tweets out all the time, and I don't like to see that, man. People who need, these inspirational tweets and things to hype them up. The one time he posted some fucking long paragraph about how he woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning just crying, but it was tears of joy or some bullshit. Like, he's very in touch with his feelings. And I don't like to see that either from fighters. It's like he's one fight away from a support dog or something. And I don't like that. But in terms of the fight, man, and in terms
it worked
of,
for Mackenzie Dern, I will say. It worked for Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah, Dern's, 2.0, divorced Dern. So that's different, man. But I don't like to see it from Pogues. He's talking about his nutrition again. He's been saying that for a while. So we'll see what he comes in at on the scales. I'd like to see him come under the heavyweight limit. He's always pushing that. He used to fight at 205. He was slim. He had good movement for heavyweight, decent cardio, but let himself go, man, at heavyweight. He has had some short notice fights as well. But yeah, anyway, back to this one. I think he's going to smash fucking this Hamdy guy. I think he's going to finish him, in fact. Not sure whether it's a sub or a TKO, but I think once he gets on top, once this Hamdy guy gasses, I think he's a front runner, and I believe he will gas. He's been off for too long, hasn't done much in between, had one grappling fight where he got subbed in the first round. There's a lot of things I don't like about Pogues, but it's all about the matchup. It's all about the opposition, and this is inferior competition, in my opinion. So after a round and a half, when this guy gets tired, runs out of ideas, I don't think he's got the striking to compete. And you said it yourself, man. He goes for these upper body lock takedowns. He doesn't go for the single legs, which is what Petersen was catching Pogues with. And even then, Pogues was trying to work his way back up. He didn't accept position. He weren't trying to just lock him down and get a stand up from the ref. So I like Pogues a lot, and I like him by finishing rounds 2 and 3, probably round 2, I think. But yeah, it could be either or. He's got some subs on his record from the early days. Yeah, I just think this is a huge step down for him, man. And I'm surprised by the line with all the, outside noise, the steroid suspension, the time off. So yeah, Pogues for me, man.
If I had to be pressed for a lean, I would probably go the same way. Reason being, you just look at the anthropomorphic advantages. 29 years of age compared to 32 years of age for Hamdy. So you got the younger guy with way more professional experience. Well, is he the bigger guy? Yes, he is. 6'3" compared to 6'2", 77-inch reach compared to 73-inch reach. Kind of checks a lot of boxes for what I'd want to see. And, it opened up -110. Then instantly money came in on the Pogue side pretty hard, and it bumped Hamdy up to a +170. Line has now been adjusted back. It's -110 again. So that didn't last very long. It was a short adjustment, but it does kind of tell me there was somebody that just backed up the limit bets that they could on the Pogue side when this opened. So kind of an interesting note there. I think it's a gross fight. I kind of lean more towards small world lifters than anything. Both fighters are trash past. I do think Pogues kind of fits that Dante Mays bucket of like guys that hang around the UFC, but they're ultimately not very good. They're not destined for title trajectory or anything like that. But then you have to ask yourself, does Hamdy look like these names that have beaten him before? And Polizzi is better than Hamdy. You look back, even the late Jordan Young, better than Hamdy as well, in my opinion. So Hamdy has some upside to him as a wrestling heavyweight, but beyond that, I didn't really love what I saw from his game. And to your point, Rich, looked like he was ready to check out in round 2, and Dante Mays was the last to find out. So I think that Jamal Pogues a little bit more presence inside the octagon, probably would notice if his opponent's ready to go home.
Yeah, the only thing I can think, like, driving the line is people being lazy. Like, they see, a wrestler in Petersen took Pogues down and giving problems. Hamdy's a wrestler, 1 + 1 = fucking 2. And I just think it's lazy, man. I've even seen on the regional circuit, Hamdy get taken down by a complete bum on his back. He got back up because, the guy was nothing special. But like you said, he's got the metric advantage as well, Pogues. And I just think when push comes to shove, Hamdy's going to check out in there, man. And Pogues does look motivated. I take the piss out of him for his motivational stuff, but he looks motivated. He says he's got a nutritionist, so let's see.
He had a lot of the right ideas against Petersen as well. Petersen tried to mix it up a little bit, pushed him back to the fence, lifted the single leg really high, and he was doing a good job just keeping the frames on the face. If somebody can't get close to you with their face, it's going to be very hard for them to take you down or sustain takedowns. So I think that, he's been coached well in that regard. But we can move along to the next fight, my man. We've got Bogdan Grad taking on Lucas Alexander. We're right on the verge of a line flip. Some books have already flipped this line. Bogdan Grad opened up, a moderate favorite here, about -200. Now the line is looking like +105 or so on the Bogdan Grad side of things. You got a -115, -125 approximately on the Lucas Alexander side. And, why don't we have you lead us off on this one, Rich? I think I started the last one, and I don't want to monopolize the talking points here. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I like Grad. I don't like Alexander in terms of him and his finishing ability. Even in the Petersen fight, which is his only good win in his career, he had him down on the floor. He was in his guard, and he just stood back up. It looked like he was content to win the decision to point fight and just do enough to win. And that seems to be like a running theme in his fights, unless somebody, injures their arm like Coburn, and, he wins by a TKO injury. He's just not got good finishing instincts. And then on the other side of that, he likes to get finished, got knocked out by Jenka. Even before that, he's been subbed before as well by Brito. And I went back and checked his record, man, and it's really green. It's really trash, like the level of opposition he's been fighting. And then I know on the Grad side, there's, some things to be concerned about there. His cardio, he's a muscly guy. He throws everything into every punch. I am worried that if you're backing him, he's going to slow down. But I just think he's going to have bigger moments in the fight. I think he's going to push the wrestling. He's going to push the grappling in this one, and he could have success. He does have subs on his record. They are opportunistic ones, from what I've seen on tape. The basic thing that it comes down to is I think Alexander's just like just much about nothing, man. He's not good anywhere. His process in fights isn't good. If he wants to point fight in this one, he's just going to give Grad 15 minutes to catch him with a punch or hook up a submission. So I like Grad. I'm surprised by the line again. It's a pick 'em. I think Grad's even going to an underdog, it looks like, from Bet Online. So I like that. So, Grad's the side for me.
Yeah, I think that, if you pick Bogdan Grad this week, people are going to say it's based on recency bias for Lucas Alexander. Why did I pick Jeka Sergei? I picked Jeka Sergei outright, KO 1 or 2, and I knew the liabilities, right? If you read my write-up that is on the screen right now, it'll tell you, there's definitely liabilities. We've never seen Jeka against a UFC level guy, but what about beating Steven Petersen in a kickboxing match tells me you're going to be -500 against anybody? It just doesn't tell me that. Now he's obviously not in that price range anymore, right? He's fallen out of that price range. But when you look at his trajectory, he seems like a fine fighter, nothing special to me. And I think on the durability side of things, not so good. Bogdan Grad on the other side, he seems like a UFC project, so to speak. You look at the fact that they brought him back for another series of the Contender, right? They didn't have to do that. They brought him back because they wanted to sign him. It didn't work out the first time, no problem. How many times do we see guys get a second crack at that Contender Series spot, and then they win the second one? Obviously it doesn't work out for everybody, but the UFC doesn't have to give you 2 cracks. If they didn't like you, they'd just tell you, go F yourself, go win 5 more on the regionals. They didn't do that, right? They just give him another opportunity. And it's because he's got a fun style. He goes out there, he looks for finishes, and he goes out there with a willingness to accept risk. Lucas Alexander, when he's met real hard resistance, he's been finished. He's been put away. And I think that Bogdan Grad can go out there and put him away. So I was waiting for this line to flip. I saw a lot of interest on the Lucas Alexander side. I said, I'll wait and see where this line ends up. I want to see exactly how far this pushes out. I think the Lucas Alexander love is real in the market. And I just think Bogdan Grad's going to go out there and compete with him everywhere. I've thought it was fascinating, some of the line moves on this fight. I almost don't want to give it away too much, but I'll just let you guys know the line moved very hard against Bogdan Grad, right? If you look at the money line price, but Bogdan Grad via submission opens 18-1. It's down to 8-1. I thought that was interesting, right? You guys can take that for whatever it's worth. I thought that was very interesting. As the money line equity decreases, the likelihood of him to win by submission massively increases. That's interesting. So I think that overall, you've got the more dangerous fighter in Bogdan Grad, the more aggressive and more assertive fighter, and he's now at plus money. I think that's the side for me personally. The other thing I'll note about this, guys, Jeka Sergei, it's not like I was married to that side either, because the next fight he had, I picked Weston Wilson via submission, and he cashed it easily. So you look at this guy, Jekka Sergei, the question's still out. Is he a UFC level fighter? I still don't know. I think the answer may very well be no. But right now, what we know about him is that he's hardly proven himself to be UFC level, and he knocked out Lucas Alexander without much issue. So for me, the side here is Bogdan Grad or pass. And that's that. So we can move along to the next fight, my man. We've got Jasmine Jasudavicious taking on Mayra Shitara Bueno Silva. And I know you started on the last one, Rich, but I did happen to see the mush of the week before I got on the air. So why don't we kick it over to you for this one?
Yeah, I just think that the price is off, to be honest. That's the short of it. I like the fact that Silva's down to 125 again. I know the narrative is going to be that she's like sub or bust. But I think she could easily win a decision here as well. I just think Jasmine's been fortunate of her opposition or the circumstances, like when she fought Klein. Klein was on short notice, upper weight class, I believe. So yeah, she's just been fortunate of her opposition, man. And I think Silva's a different animal. She's like tenacious. When she gets on top, she will throw punches to finish the fight. We know about her submission game. You know, she got these chokes, variation of different chokes. She's got a slick armbar from bottom as well. So yeah, I think she's dangerous, and the line's just off for women's MMA. It's as simple as that. Her cardio is lacking a little bit, but now she's with Fighting Nerds, so we'll see if that changes. And you know, maybe she's taking some supplements with the rest of that team. Jasmine's in Thailand working on her kickboxing, like big whoop. That doesn't mean much to me. She's never been much of a striker. I don't think a week in Thailand on vacation is going to do much difference to that either. So yeah, I like Mayra because she's tenacious. She's got a great submission game, which is going to play into the hands of Jasmine taking her down. And I think Jasmine doesn't know any other way. I don't think she's going to game plan to like, oh, I'm just going to strike with this girl. Or you know what? Who fucking knows? Maybe she is. Maybe she thinks she's fucking Van Damme from Kickboxer now, and she's going to try her Muay Thai out the whole fight and not try any wrestling at all. Like fucking Nakamura versus that fucking Gaffarov guy. Who knows what going on?
I can't believe I made the best case for betting Gaffarov, and then I didn't play it, and he easily takes the 30-27. Wanted to puke in my hands. Please continue.
Yeah, who knows what's going on in these fuckers' heads, man? Like, you'd think, being the professionals that they are, they'd game plan for their opposition. So who knows, man? But if Jasmine takes it down, she's going to give her all the opportunity to fucking find a submission. And I think it's equal on the feet. I'd even lean towards Silva because she's got more impactful strikes. So yeah, Silva is an easy click for me at plus 200.
I definitely see where you're coming from with the line. You know, I think Jasmine was lined similarly against like Priscilla Cachoeira and just like the dregs of the division. I'd have to go back and fact check myself, but like I just from memory and instinct, I feel like it was very similar price. So long term, that pricing is probably off. But I got to tell you, my hesitation here comes from the fact that I think that when it comes down to who's got more dog in them, I do think it's Jasmine. So like skill for skill, I think it's going to be a very competitive round one. I think you're probably going to see the live number come down. Shitara comes out throwing haymakers. Like the reason Holly Holm was like, let's wrestle and grapple was in part because she was getting hit with big punches to the face. And she was getting pressured, right? She was getting backed up. I don't think Mayra is afraid of like walking into the fire. We even saw in her last fight, she's bleeding out of her face, trying to convince the referee, hey, let's keep it going. What are we doing here? So I do like that about her, but there's people that can compete when they start to fatigue and people that just start to look like a shitty version of themselves. And that is what I do fear. You know, we kind of saw that in the title fight. In some of her fights that get extended beyond round two, she's just feeling sorry for herself. She's making suboptimal decisions. And the one thing about Jazz's game is she does tend to be very hard to put away and she pressures. So it's like, if you look back at the Natalia Silva fight, like Natalia Silva beat her ass, just whooped her from pillar to post. And she just kept taking it. And she kept looking for takedowns. She kept trying, like she's a tenacious ass fighter. And that for me is what could make this interesting. You know, I almost think it's MBS round 1-2. And then Jasmine round 2-3. You know, I think they're going to go take chunks out of each other. And the thing that I will acknowledge is I don't like the Thailand move for her either. You know, what are we doing? Let's go to, America and learn some wrestling. Let's go to Dagestan if you must, something like that. I don't understand why she's going to Thailand. Striking is not going to become your thing at 35 years of age. She's okay at it. She's not special at it. She's much better in the wrestling and grappling portion. We've seen her go with Miranda Maverick, who's a physical flyweight who prides herself on her wrestling and grappling, and she out-grappled her for large portions of that fight. I think that should be your calling card. That should be your bread and butter. I don't know what we're doing in Thailand, but ultimately, I think this is a pass fight for me, maybe a live entry type of spot. I think that Jasmine's going to try and push the pace late and see if she can break her, which I think is possible. But MBS is probably going to be working on a lead in the first round. Especially if Jasmine doesn't get a takedown in round one, she's going to get lit up, in my opinion. MBS is going to be mad and at size parity. So she's going to come out throwing haymakers in my view, but I just don't know if she has the cardio to back it up for 15 minutes, especially with the weight cut. She was at 135 and, that can have its own drawbacks in terms of your cardio. But I think now cutting down the weight, I almost want to see it to believe it. It's been a little while since she's made the weight class, but she's the younger girl. They have commensurate professional experience. So, I could definitely see this being a much closer fight than the line entails.
Yeah, you mentioned about Silva slowing down in fights, which she does, or she gets discouraged or whatever as the fight goes on. But Jasmine does that too. It's only because of the opposition she's been fighting and facing no resistance that you haven't seen that of late. But when you watch her in fights where she goes against opposition who are decent and they're not fucking clawing up a weight class on like a few days' notice in a debut, or Cachoeira, who's got no ground game, or Maverick, who just fucking is a complete head case and checks out in fights like Alex Hernandez. When she fights Natalia Silva, she's in autopilot when she can't get her way with girls. When she's the nail, she doesn't gas because she's always got the cardio, but she goes into autopilot. She just marches forward. Like you call it tenacious, I call it being a retard. She just walks forward. She's throws caution to the wind, and she was getting lit up. If Mayra Silva hits her with the frequency that Natalia Silva was, I think she hits harder, more damaging shots, more vicious. She's going to split her open, hurt her. I can definitely see a finish. So I'd just say that to push back on what you were saying about Silva. And also having her back to the wall, she's lost 2 fights now, Silva. And I know what you're saying, see it to believe it with this weight cut to 125, but I just think she's making the right moves, like the move to that Fighting Nerds camp, the push to 125. It just shows me that she's taking it serious. She cares about her career, and she doesn't want to fucking go full time to the OnlyFans that she's fucking set up. So yeah, I like this move to 125. It shows me that she's got some discipline to actually want to make the move, and she's not being lazy and a fat slob at 135, man. Fighting girls who are way bigger than her. And I know Jazz is bigger than her. She's got a metric advantage, but she's a skinny pole, man. She's nothing special.
Just for perspective, I believe that she was a plus 200 underdog when she fought Kay Hansen. I believe I bet her plus 200 against Kay Hansen, and that was in 2022. So the tables have turned tremendously from a betting perspective. Jasmine Jasudavicious now strong in the hearts and minds of, UFC gamblers, but she could let you down, right? She's a 35-year-old Canadian woman. What could go wrong? I do respect her game a lot. I do think, deserved favorite here, but price is ballooned out for me for where it probably should be, especially given the fact she's fighting a former title challenger. This is probably the hardest matchmaking of her career since the Natalia Silva fight.
And she's Canadian. They're one step down from the French, minus GSP, of course.
See, that's the handicapping that people are looking for. Next up, guys, we got Terrence McKinney taking on Damir Hadzovic. We'll have to get Rich's thoughts on Bosnia and where that falls on the global mixed martial arts continuum. But we've got the Bosnian bomber, Damir Hadzovic, 14-7, hardly fights, but he's fighting this weekend in the UFC, 38 years of age, Rich, and he's taking on Terrence McKinney. I'll go first on this one. I don't think that either one of these guys are trustworthy for your dollars. I think that Terrence McKinney should absolutely win this fight. If he loses this fight, he should reconsider his career. Not trying to be disrespectful, just trying to be serious. If you look at where he's at, his career is just a walking highlight reel in both directions. He's put a lot of guys on the highlight reel, but he's been put on the highlight reel now a few times and in devastating ways. The Ziam win, aged pretty well, used his grappling, took him down, dominated from on top. he had a lot of success against Sean Woodson, a guy that has quietly racked up a very respectable UFC record at this point. So I think that when you look at McKinney's skills, he should absolutely have the skills to take down Damir Hadzovic, dominate him on the mat, do whatever he wants to him, really. But does he have the cardio to sustain it if he doesn't get the finish? I don't think so. Based on what we've seen, he seems to me like a guy who's a victim of his own success. If he has 8 minutes of success and doesn't finish you, starts to tell himself, I can't finish this guy, starts to put doubt in his mind. And losses, I often talk about in MMA, are pathological. The guy just like loses the same fight over and over, right? If it gets to round 2, he hasn't put you away and you're starting to put a little pressure on, he goes, I've been here before. I know how this story ends. And he finds a way to lose. So for me, that's a huge problem betting on somebody at Big Chalk. I'd probably look towards, the fight to end in the first 2 rounds. I think if Damir wins the fight, it's probably via knockout. I think that if McKinney wins the fight, it's probably via submission. Damir's kind of got a brick for a head. McKinney's got an ability to go out there and land hammers, but Damir's not a guy that lays over for people easy on strikes, but he's a mark in the grappling. I don't think he's got anything for you. You look back at that Renato Moicano fight, my favorite moment in UFC history. I wanted to keep fighting. Well, then you shouldn't have submitted me. He just said to him in earnest. And Moicano didn't realize. I thought it ended the round like Chael Sonnen, but there's some inside baseball for you. How do you feel about this one, Rich?
Yeah, nothing too fucking profound, man. You said it all. If McKinney's going to win, it's usually in the first round. If not, he's going to die or doubt himself or gas and then get finished himself. I don't think he's ever won a decision in his whole career. I can tell you how it's going to go, man. You're right. McKinney's going to bum rush him, take him down, try and get to the back, put the body triangle in and try and get a rear naked choke. I don't know whether he's going to do that or not. Moicano is the only person to do it, but his level of grappling is far superior to everyone else Damir has fought. Damir is 38, but, from his training and whatnot that I'm seeing, he still looks like he's in shape. So, yeah, it's a hard one to call, man. I just think it's the same old story. And I don't trust McKinney with camp changes or, I don't think he learns lessons from fights where he paces himself. He's insta-tapped in fights before. I don't like to see that. So, I think you bet McKinney sub round 1 and then look to live bet it if it gets past the round. I think that's as basic as you can make this fight. There is a world where McKinney wins a decision. Like you said, Damir, he can get taken down. Diakese showed that. Rinse and repeat the takedowns. He doesn't offer anything off his back. Use your athleticism. Be smart. But McKinney isn't smart. He's far from it. So I expect him to either get his sub or die in round 2 or 3.
Now, here's the one piece of capping I have to throw out there as well. Our guy, Terrence McKinney, is a recent father. So does that change the handicap? I know John Kelly gives a couple of plus points for recent fathers, like, hey, motivation level. Now you're going to go out there and compete. Now maybe instead of going wild and crazy, my man rides the wrist and just gets that 15-minute decision. I would be, a believer when I see it with Terrence McKinney as well. But, hey, new dad power. Maybe he's got something figured out here.
Yeah, and people were saying it's fucking Carlos Diego Ferreira's fucking birthday and he's going to win because of that. Like, I don't know. I ain't with it.
Take each fight as it comes. I believe in that. All right, next up, my man. We got, speak of the devil, Shamil Gaziev taking on Thomas Petersen. The train, he's back in action. We called the submission on Dana White Contender Series for Thomas Petersen back against Chandler Cole. But then his first UFC outing, things did not go so well for him. My man got busted up in the face, bleeding all out his mouth and nose. Showed some toughness, showed some grit, right? Never gave up on himself, but ultimately just looked outclassed, taking on an opponent in Jamal Pogues that wasn't really a special fighter. Then Mo Usman, a guy that I kept cashing in when people were like, Mo Usman is the worst fighter ever because he's not Kamaru. You don't have to be Kamaru at heavyweight to win, right? They're terrible. So he goes out there, he gets a couple wins, but Thomas Petersen is just better at what he does, right? He's a wrestler. He goes out there, tries to implement that against guys or uses that weird overhand over and over that he throws. Petersen was able to get to his wrestling, able to win the fight. Now you're looking at a Shamil Gaziev. This is a guy that was in UFC main events, right? Like he fought Jairzinho Rozenstruik in a UFC main event. He absolutely went out there and whooped up on Dontel Mays. The Martin Budai fight, he just broke him on pressure, just stayed in his face, threw too many shots, and Budai couldn't keep up, frankly. The Greg Velasco fight, I think, is interesting because if you look back at that fight, I had shouted out the ends by submission as well as Gaziev by submission. I was like, Greg Velasco, he's one of these guys that he's got an awkward style, big belly. He's going to try and bounce you around. He takes the back on guys. Like at heavyweight, most guys don't take the back. They don't even try. He takes the back on guys. So it's like he's an awkward fighter. He took the back of Gaziev. He kind of showed Gaziev he was a Dagestan national volleyball team member, right? He's got some combat skills. He's not bad anywhere, but he's more of an athlete that's being turned into an MMA fighter than he is like a combat sportsman, right? Like some guys have a lineage in combat sports. Some guys are just good athletes in a shitty division where they can teach him some skills, go out there, send him out there to get a win. So I think of Shamil as a guy that's still a little bit green in some of these situations on the mat. Jair Senior Rosenstrike, that's not where he's going to make you pay. He just waited for him to get tired and then beat his ass, right? Simple enough game plan. Fair enough. It worked out well for him. In this fight, you only got 3 rounds. Are you going to get him tired realistically? Maybe for the latter half of, the last 7.5 minutes or something. But I don't think Petersen is some cardio machine. We've seen him gas out in the 3rd round before. So I think the way that Thomas Petersen wins this fight is he gets takedowns early and often. Otherwise, he's going to get fucked up on the feet. The guy's striking is just not there yet, in my opinion. I think that Gaziev throws way more volume, way faster, a little bit more intentional with his striking, probably a little bit more powerful as well. I think Petersen, definitely the better grappler. Like when it comes down to it, I think he's a more skilled grappler. So interesting fight for me. I'm curious what you think about this one, Rich, because I think Petersen just doesn't strike me as a guy who's like aggressive and violent enough to be a fighter at a super high level, but he does have skills. The single legs that he was going against Pogues, like that gets a lot of heavyweights off their feet, in my opinion. What do you think about this?
Yeah, same as you, man. I'd just say that the Gaziev cardio issues are like not blown out of proportion, but he was doing all right. He was fighting through in the fight with Jazir. That went to round 4. I know he was puffing in that one and he quit in round 4, but he was getting jabbed up and fucking beat on the feet, man. Like he was just outclassed striking. And Petersen isn't one to push the pace either. He's slow, plodding, hasn't got footwork. His volume's low, so he's not going to push the fight to test that cardio of Gaziev. I think he's going to knock Petersen out. He's just too big, too strong, too intentional with his strikes, like you said, more power. Looking to actually finish the fight, where I think Petersen is just looking to jab, throw things out there. He's cautious, overly cautious, and Gaziev's just different from the people that he's been fighting. I just think Gaziev's going to knock him out, man. Just too big.
As of now, the only UFC level fighter that Petersen has beat is Mo Usman, and he's like bottom barrel UFC as far as I'm concerned. So Gaziev, this is like a make or break for his career. If he loses this fight, it's probably just over for him at a high level. They'd probably pay him too much anyway. They would probably be like, hey, thanks anyway, man. Appreciate the memories. Goodbye. He's 34, so he kind of needs to go right now. It's the heavyweight division. You have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more time. But in terms of becoming something, he's got to keep it moving. And he's got more experience. So he's got to go out there and leverage that.
It's the occasion too. I haven't checked this out, but I'm betting Petersen's never fucking had a holiday in Saudi Arabia before. I like him to knock him out, man.
The last thing I'll note on this, Rich, if you remember on the broadcast, they were talking about Petersen and how he was so happy to be there. And like he just seemed like he was overwhelmed by the moment. That was at the UFC Apex. Like, is it going to get easier now, like sending him out here? I don't think so. I think he's probably going to be overwhelmed by the moment. And Gaziev is going to run him down and just throw a flurry of fists. I don't even think it's going to be a knockout. I think it's going to be a standing TKO where he's just like looking, like he's disheveled through his hands.
Yeah, he gets complacent as well as the fight goes on, Petersen. But he just
Waldo never knocks out anybody. Took him out in the 3rd round because he was tiring. So crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, I once cashed in bigly, Rich, on not too big, but I cashed in on a nice score with our guy Muhammad Naimov against Nathaniel Wood because of the premise that you can't fade a Muhammad in the desert. And now we're back, right? And we've got Muhammad Naimov, but he's flipped from being a plus 200 underdog to being a minus 260 favorite. This is a guy that started his UFC career as like a plus 400 underdog on short notice to Jamie Malarkey. How the times have changed, right? People don't know how to price this guy, Muhammad Naimov. On the other side, Kaan Ofli coming off of a awful UFC debut where he got knocked out brutally against Mayra and Santos and looked like he had simply nothing to offer him. Rich, we'll start it off with you. How do you feel about this fight, man?
I like Naimov. I think he wins. I don't think that this Ofli guy is UFC caliber. I went and watched the Nathan Fletcher fight to see how he handles someone who's got grappling. It's a shame that Nathan was reactive rather than active in that fight. The one moment that he was active and he actually pushed the grappling offensively, he did well, man. But for a lot of the fight, he looked a bit starstruck in there, backed up to the cage, and he let this Ofli guy dictate the pace. He just seems like a wrestler with an overhand right to me. He throws that overhand right. He's not really looking to connect with it. It's all just to get the double leg and get you down. That's where he feels most comfortable. Naimov's too big. I think he gets reversed, and it's going to be either a rear naked choke if he tries getting back to the feet, or if he stays on his back, Naimov will head and arm choke him in round 1 or 2. I just think this is a complete setup, and Ofli is outskilled, and I like the sub because I know he's going to push the grappling. And I know Naimov has had success against people. Nathaniel Wood moving up a weight class. He should be fighting a class down. And then Naimov, he's a big fucker for the weight class as well, metric-wise. And that plays a part in the grappling. So, yeah, I just think he's going to reverse position and get a submission on this Ofli guy, man. Probably rounds 1 or 2.
Interesting. So we definitely see this one a little bit different. Just in terms of the grappling dynamic, I think Ofli is a better grappler than Naimov. Just in terms of like the skill on the ground, the way that they move, who's more proactive there. But Naimov, the things that he's got going for him, his wrestling's not bad, right? He's a solid enough wrestler. He cheats his ass off. The guy has never met a rule he wouldn't break. Like, the guy will do whatever it takes to try and cash your ticket for you. Make no mistake about that. And the other thing about him is, when he's fresh, he's very strong. He's quite physical. We saw Felipe Lima needed to kind of break him down over time, outpace him, and then he was able to get to his position. My big problem with Ofli, I thought Ofli was going to beat Mayra and Santos, to tell you the truth, Rich, and it was just because I thought he had a clear levels gap in the grappling. He just didn't have the physicality to enforce it at all. And when you looked at that fight, I don't like his durability either. I kind of think that's where he's the most vulnerable. He can get hurt on the feet. He can get hit on the feet cleanly. He's not a very good striker, offensive or defensive. So he's got some real vulnerabilities. But I do think in terms of how he wins this fight, if he wins this fight, he's probably better as a live entry than a pre-entry. I think he's going to lose the first round unless he's able to get easy takedowns. I don't think he can take down Naimov easy when they're both fresh. But I think that as the fight extends, Naimov is a known gasser as far as I'm concerned. Like, if you look at the Nathaniel Wood fight, he was in cardiac arrest in the 3rd round. Nathaniel Wood was assaulting him, and I was just glad that he was able to survive there. Like, if it was, in Vegas, they might have stopped that fight as well. His reactions were horrible on the ground. And I think that that's the danger with Naimov is look at the Colin Anglin fight. Like, there's not a world in which Colin Anglin should have a competitive fight with Naimov because skill for skill, it's not close. But then you look at how that fight played out, and like Naimov invites a lot of risk on the feet, so he's willing to accept damage in order to throw big shots. And I don't think Ofli could really hurt him. But in terms of optics, not great. And then when he does that, he can get serious, or like he can get seriously tired. So it's just like I saw that Anglin fight on review, and I was like, it's hard to trust this guy. I think they've got him on a new protocol since he got to the UFC. Like, the guy looks to be more muscular. He looks to be a little bit more, in shape and ready to go. But we've still seen some of those flare-ups. So for me, if I was on the Ofli side, I would be very small on like submission round 2, round 3, something like that. I really don't think he's got much path beyond that. I think if you look at the decision equity, again, it's hard to fade a guy named Muhammad in this region of the world. It just is. So I think that when it comes down to it, should be a good scrap for as long as it lasts. But I lean towards Naimov KO or Ofli via submission. I don't think more often than not this sees the final 15. But if it does, I think Naimov's getting his hand raised one way or the other. Do you have any feedback on that, Rich?
Yeah, I give him a pass for the Anglin fight. That was his first step up in competition from the regionals where he was fighting 1 and 3 guys. I'm looking now, Anglin was 7 and 1 at the time. And he was it was his first step up. It was on the Contender Series. You know, maybe he got jitters, Naimov. Maybe he thought, oh, I'm just going to get this guy out of there like I do everybody else. It didn't go his way and whatnot. But he's come a long way since then, man. He's had a fair few fights. He's had a few in the UFC. He was winning that Lima fight until he wasn't. You know, Lima got the sub in round 3. But yeah, he was doing his thing, man. And I just think that Ofli, you know, again, we mentioned the occasion, you know, they're flying him out, opening up the main fucking card in Saudi. I just think it's a big occasion for him, man, and they'll flap it. And I've just looked at my book. I don't know about everybody else's, but you can get either by submission at plus 575, which I think is a big number. So I'll take some of that as well as the Naimov sub. But yeah, I'd just be wary over the KO, man. It just, I don't know. It just seems a bit very square, and I don't know. Just the fact that Ofli's going to push the grappling, it's going to give him all the opportunity to do it. And in these pro fights, Naimov has finished via sub twice, man. So yeah, I like it.
I like where your head's at. I think that that's a good spot. And also, you know, the end sub at a huge number. I don't think that's a bad look at all. I wanted to just shout this out from Glenbot. He says Ofli is fighting out of Aus, so why is he not on next week's card? Seems like a talent enhancement fight for Naimov. I typically agree. Like, I think the reason they match made this is for Naimov to get a win and probably to get a spectacular highlight reel knockout. However, the one thing I will note is Ofli is Turkish, right? So he is ethnically Turkish. I think that is why, you know, they included him, right? In like the list of fighters that they wanted to try and include on this card. I do think that's part of the reason why he got the call here. Nickname Genghis. You know, he's connected to the part of the world as well. All right. But Tajikistan, they're filling up football stadiums to watch these guys on a television, right? 16,000 to all yell and scream for Muhammad Naimov from a football stadium across the world. So Tajikistan goes hard. You got to remember that. Next up, my man, we've got Fares Ziam, the smile killer, taking on Mike Davis, Beast Boy. This is, you know, an interesting fight because, again, we've got the criteria met. Younger fighter here in Fares Ziam, more professional experience, much more active, but he's taking on a physical guy in Mike Davis, a guy who's been involved in some serious fights in his own right, you know, memorable fights on Contender Series, but injuries have plagued his career, kind of held him back, held him out of the spotlight. He had some big wins, but you look back at his record as well. He's had some tough losses along the way, some that have set back his career a little bit. So, Rich, why don't we have you start us off? Fares Ziam, the smile killer, Mike Davis, Beast Boy. Fascinating fight. I think we're getting Fares Ziam kind of rounding into his prime, into his you know, best form of his career, but he also got choked out by Terrence McKinney in the first round. So definitely some ground to make up. What do you think?
Yeah, that tap against McKinney, man, was a joke. I had to go watch that, obviously, because they're both fighting on the card, but it wasn't even in, man. Even Bisping was like, no, it's not in. He's going to be fine. Seconds later, he was tapping to it, man. It was like on an angle. I don't know, maybe McKinney's got a fucking tight squeeze, but I doubt it, man. It seems like Ziam just thought, fuck this shit, and checked out. Yeah, he's on a run. He beat Frivola, the pothead, Pules by a split decision. Big whoop there. You know, he really should have took care of Pules if he was anything, but he, you know, he gassed hard in that fight. Jai Herbert, Figlak, you know, these aren't big names, so he doesn't impress me much, to be honest. I like Davis. I think Davis wins. The lines come down considerably on Ziam. Like, since it opened, it took like a lot of action. So yeah, I'm still waiting, man. I think Davis, I think this could go to a complete pick'em. Last time I checked anyway, Davis was like minus 140, or it was trending that way anyway. But yeah, more tools to win, man. He can push the wrestling if he wants to. Neither guy's been knocked out. I like the boxing for Davis, whereas Ziam, I see more of a point fighter, like skirting on the outside and, you know, lighting people up with jabs, kicks and whatnot. But yeah, it's the fact that Davis can push some grappling if things get tough on the feet, or just to mix the fight up in general and have good optics for the judges. So I like Davis. I like decision. I'm sure people will hit the submission because Ziam's been subbed like 3 or 4 times, but I don't like it, man. I think if you were going to have Davis, you should have got on the Levy one like the rest of us. That time is gone. You missed it. So, yeah, I like Davis, and I like him by decision to get the win here. Just doing more of a complete martial artist rather than a kickboxer, which is how I see Ziam. And I think he's had favourable opposition, Ziam too. There's some concerns from people, in my Discord, people were talking about Davis, got one fight out the door. I watched his interview with James Lynch. He was talking about outside endeavors. This was the last fight in his contract, and he chose not to sign with the UFC. He wanted to play the field, see how this fight goes, and then, see what his options are. So that's quite bold of him. He said, quote unquote, that he's gambling on himself. And it is a gamble. You lose here, and, no one's going to want to pick up damaged goods if that's your intention. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. But I like Mike to get the W, man.
Yeah, I remember saying that I would never bet on Mike Davis ever again, based on some of the interviews that he's given in the lead up to that fight with Natan Levy. I want guys that fighting is their whole life, that they're willing to go out there and give everything. Like Merab Dvalishvili, I don't mean to lean on him as like an archetype, but like the guy said, I would have killed myself if I lost to Piotr Jan. Okay, like this guy is all in on winning his fights, right? He's not going to go out there and give you a 50% effort. It's a 100% effort every time. That is what I want. And whether it wins or loses, then I can feel good about it. With a guy like Mike, he's never lost, like a fight where you look and you're like, oh my God, like this guy's such a bum. How could he beat Mike? But he doesn't compete that often. He kind of just has interspersed these competitions throughout his life. He's not been very active. He normally looks good when he's in there, but he's also had some competitive enough fights, where he's getting 10 takedowns on Slava, not putting him away on the ground. You look at the fight, I'm trying to think back, Thomas Gifford, he allowed Thomas Gifford to hang around in that fight for a really long time. And like Thomas Gifford's corner probably should have thrown the towel in earlier, but he absolutely beat the brakes off him, but accepted a lot of return fire. Like you look at a guy like Mike and he just stands in the fire. His offense is great. He's a powerful guy, but his defense is just a little bit slow. He's not the fastest guy, I feel, on the return, right? So he does a good job, pop, pistons on offense, but just like his reaction time is like a half beat slower than I would want it to be. And then when you look at his grappling, it's very good on offense. What is it going to look like if he gets into a fight where he's not able to bail himself out with takedowns as it gets extended? I do think he's one of these muscle-bound guys. He cuts a decent amount of weight, and he does a little bit of huffing and puffing the later that fights get. I think that Fares Ziam early on in his UFC career was a total mark in the grappling. I still think he's got vulnerabilities there. I think Davis by sub is live. And I think that when you look at where he's gotten better, it's in those in-between stages. It's framing off. When Frevola was trying to grapple him, by the way, Frevola's gone out there and had competitive grappling matches with a lot of guys that are serious fighters. Even Jalen Turner audited him on the mat for 15 minutes. Just took him down, passed his guard, put him in triangle chokes, like all sorts of different things. He was moving through positions. You look at that Ziam fight, he tried to wrestle with him. He tried to grab a hold of him, and Ziam did a much better job pushing the head down and away, framing off. And then that knee at the end, that was punishing, man. That was a brutal knockout shot. I think that Ziam has put together a little bit of a better skill set over time, and I like his frequency of activity. So for me, this is a competitive fight. I think Mike Davis is a deserved favorite, but I do understand why some money came in on Ziam as well when it was at bigger numbers. So, if you're on the Mike Davis side, I would wait. I do think this number is going to come down to probably minus 120, something like that. So that's my personal opinion. You guys are all adults. You make your own decisions. But if you're on the Mike Davis side, I would be patient with your click. I think that the Ziam money is real, and I think it's probably still going to keep coming in as long as there's a plus by his name.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I like Frevola, you're right. He's had some good fights, man. But I think, it's easy to say now in hindsight, but he's a fucking washed up pothead, man. Like every time I see him, he's on Twitter talking about fucking smoking weed or whatever. So I just put him in the same category as like dumbass now. I don't like these guys who are fucking just getting high all the time and their time off. I think he made too much money, probably too many fight of the night bonuses for all the wars that he's had. So yeah, I kind of don't hype up that win from Ziam too much. And Mike Davis on the other side, you're right, man. He does stand in the pocket too long. I remember his debut. I think it was Contender Series against Sadiq. Sadiq was plus 300, man. I remember it well because I took the shot on him. And yeah, Davis got lit up, nearly got himself knocked out, but he's got a chin on him. But yeah, stands in the pocket too long, man, and he is prone to getting hit. But like I said at the beginning, neither guy's been KO'd, so I don't know, very, very hard to call, man, and probably lined correctly. If you got on Ziam early, you did good.
Heck yeah. All right. So we largely agree on that fight. Next up, this is a fascinating one. This is the one I watched the most tape on, to try and prepare for this show, because Vinicius Oliveira last time out cashed me out a nice plus money ticket against Ricky Simone. The fight before that, I think both of us leaned towards the Sopaj side. I don't remember if I bet it. I don't think I did, but I thought Sopaj was going to win. I thought he was the better talent coming in. And if you go back and watch, he had a ton of success in that fight, but I was really impressed with Vinicius Oliveira's will to win. If you just look back, like a lot of guys quit in that fight that they were having against Sopaj. Like Sopaj's on his back. He's trying to flatten him out. He's beating him up with ground and pound. That's a very common way to end a UFC fight, right? Belly down, ground and pound. When somebody takes your back, most people cover up and they do the, Brendan Schaub, Travis Brown, get me out of here, right? We're trying to give thumbs up to the referee while you're getting beat on from the back.
He thought about it.
Yeah, exactly. And then now you look about this. He then responds, gets back up to his feet, fights the handover, pulls the guy underneath him, and then absolutely unloads. Just like stands up above him and starts throwing crazy ground and pound, passing the legs, really assertive. The guy gets a second win. He's just a competitor, right? He looked tired. He looked beat up. He looked like he didn't want to be there. And then he was like, you know what? F this. This is the time where I win. Gets up, gets on top of him and starts throwing. I was like, I like that. I like that attitude, because when you go against the Said Nurmagomedov, you're going to be a nail, right? Like, I don't remember a fight that he's had where he didn't land some big shots, where he didn't go out there and kick somebody 10 times in the first minute of the fight. The guy is freaky. He's fast, comes from the same training lineage as Sabit, right? They both got in a lot of work together. They both worked with Mark Henry. They both learned how to do these crazy spinning kick to spinning back fist, touch 2 times with the leg, all these kind of weird techniques. So they're hard to get a read on. They're hard to get a beat on. Vinicius Oliveira comes from the Russian scene, right? He did some fighting over there, comes back over here. He's got some knockout losses. He can be hurt. But if you look at like his skill set, he's broadly skilled. He doesn't give up easily in any position, and he can fight 3 rounds. We saw that now multiple times, where in the 3rd round, till the bitter end, he was tracking down Sopaj trying to kill him. Like that whole 3rd round, guys, go back and watch it. It's a stalking. It's an assault. It's a murderer chasing down a victim. It is like brutal, right? Like the guy is like, I will find a way to take you out before the time is up. And he is just walking him down, low kick, 2 punches upstairs, walk him down again, knee to the body, low kick, go. And he just never stopped. He never let off that pressure. The thing you need to beat Said Nurmagomedov, in my humble opinion, is pressure all day. If you pressure this guy all day, he can break. Said Yakub Kakramanov had him in the point where he taps Said Yakub and then he's like leaning on the fence, like taking deep breaths of recovery, because Said Yakub made him work. He had him on the verge of breaking, in my humble opinion. But he did a great job. He's got very good skills everywhere. That ninja choke is real. You put yourself in that ninja choke, you'll be in trouble. His back takes are very good. He takes the back. He puts in that body triangle. He could threaten with the rear naked choke. Jonathan Martinez had to show a lot of toughness to survive that fight. But he could be pressed against the fence. He could be broken on cardio over time. And he could get hurt himself. The one thing about him is a lot of guys are not willing to strike with him. They are afraid to strike with him because they know the consequences that could be coming on the other side. I don't think Vinicius Oliveira cares about consequences. Like, he's been knocked out before. He is willing to be knocked out again. You just see it by the way he fights. The guy takes every risk known to mankind. And that's sometimes what you need to beat a good fighter like Said. So as far as I'm concerned, Said is the heavy favorite in the first round here because he's a little bit more technical everywhere. He's a little bit more likely to be assertive in his game planning. But if he is shooting desperation takedowns and this fight is getting extended in rounds 2 and 3, I think Vinicius Oliveira is live. So if you hit the early numbers, God bless you. I think anything over 2-1, you got to at least take a look at that. But now it's come down as plus 145 or so. I would wait and see what you can get after 1 round. I think 1 round is the biggest danger with Said Nurmagomedov. If you look at most of his finishes in the UFC, they come in that very first round. He's aggressive with that choke. He's got great skills on the feet. He can go out there and throw crazy shit. So I think big danger for Vinicius in the early going. But as this fight gets extended, man, I think he could find a second win and potentially a finish. And I think he'd need one. I don't think he's getting the cards in this part of the world, but I think he could go out there and potentially finish this guy. That's why I think he may be worth a poke. What do you think about this one, Rich?
Yeah, at first I liked Saeed by KO. It's a huge number. It's 850. But now I'm also seeing that Eva by KO is 245. So I don't mind that either. I kind of disagree about the first round for Saeed. I know, I agree he does slow down in fights. But I think Oliveira is going to be cautious and not fight as frantic as he usually does. The calf kicks will be there for Saeed. He likes to throw those. He's unorthodox on the feet. And for the weight class, he has a few KOs himself in his career. I just don't like Oliveira. I'll never be a fan. I don't like his process. Ricky Simon's a bit washed. And I didn't like the way he was going in for the high takedowns like we were talking about with Gaziev. Saeed goes for the single legs. And I think that's going to be a problem for Oliveira, like it was against Sopaj. So I think, obviously, the sub's always on with Saeed. He's got that nasty guillotine. And Oliveira on the ground, that's his kryptonite. He likes to stand. He likes to throw wild shit and, use all the juice that he's fucking got to flatline people like Sopai. So, yeah, I like Saeed, either by KO or KO for Saeed as well. I'll sprinkle that. But I think he gets him out of there, man. I just think, Oliveira, he's fought some subpar competition. I thought Ricky would be the one to do it. But yeah, Ricky just looked really flat in that performance. But yeah, I just see Saeed getting it done, man.
Yeah, Saeed is a very good fighter. I mentioned on X, if you guys don't follow me over there at Liam Picks Fights, it was like a semi-viral post, but I just said that this guy, Saeed Nurmagomedov, no relation, by the way. He's not a Nurmagomedov clan member. He's just from the same part of the world, same last name, not the same family. But if you look at this guy, he has arguably the best ninja choke in UFC history. If you just go back and look, there's very few people that pull off the technique more than once, and he's done it to several guys. So we call it a guillotine parochially. He has a good guillotine as well. He went for that against, I think it was what's his name? Oh gosh, now I have to go back and check. Son of a bitch.
What's that choke Ben Rothwell used to get on people?
He would go for that 10-finger guillotine. So he'd go here with this grip, where you just lock underneath with all 10 fingers and squeeze two sides of their throat.
Yeah.
The ninja choke, the difference being on a normal guillotine, I'm here and I'm grabbing at my own hand. I have some kind of lock here and I'm squeezing their head. The difference on the ninja, I'm coming across and making it so their head is squeezed into this box. Oh my God, dude. It's a brutal choke. Anytime I can switch my guillotine to a ninja choke, I try to do it because it prevents the roll. If you think back to Cody Durden and Matt Schnell, he put him in a ninja choke. So when he rolled, he was just in a tighter choke and had to tap very fast. So I think that when you look back, Saeed has a good guillotine, but that ninja choke is world-class. It's his best technique. And Vinicius, his coaches better be coaching him up on not putting his head in there because we saw, now I'm pulling it back up, Jonathan Martinez. I just could not think of Jonathan Martinez for love nor money. Jonathan Martinez, if you look back at that fight, was very disciplined about putting his head back up. When he wrestled Saeed Nurmagomedov, it was 2 underhooks. It was grabbing him with a waist lock around the fence. He would not put his head in a vulnerable position, and you can't against somebody that's a really good guillotine guy because eventually they will find it. Saeed Yakub Kakramanov was pushing him, taking him down, but he made one mistake with his head placement, and he got choked. That's really how it is. So fascinating fight, really high level fight. But for me, this is the kind of spot where Vinicius Oliveira could stamp himself as a contender in the division. If he wins this fight, you're going to want to buy stocks in this guy right now. Liam, why don't more fighters utilize the ninja choke? It's a hard choke to get into. I will answer that and then quickly move to the next one, but it's a hard choke to get into. So if I have to get into a guillotine, right, that is a certain level of elbow depth. To get into the ninja choke, I have to go further on my elbow depth and then get to here. So if you're able to get it, it's normally from having head and chest height on a guillotine attempt. So standing, people used to go for standing guillotines. Standing guillotines are very difficult to finish in the modern day and age. People are too good. They'll push away at the hips. They'll run their feet up the fence. They'll do all kinds of things. Now people are starting to transition. Even if you look at Mayra Bueno Silva against Holly Holm, went to that same transition, right? Instead of looking to go fall to guard or something like that, she just passed it to a ninja choke variety on the feet. So thank you for the question. Great question. All right, man. Next up, guys, we're working on the main card here. If you don't mind, drop a like on this video. If you're here watching on YouTube, if you're on X supporting that way, appreciate you as well. Go ahead and hit the retweet. Let other people know that you're watching so that way they can find the show as well. We really appreciate this support. Now, Sergei Pavlovich, he has hit hard times, my man. Jairzinho Rozenstruik on the other side, Biggie Boy. He beat Shamil Gaziev in a UFC main event, but he's been a little bit of a back and forth guy. He wins one, he loses one, had a big run of success with knockouts early on in his UFC career. Since then, he's kind of petered out against the bigger heavyweights. He tends to be undersized, despite listing at 259 pounds or whatever. You go back and look at that Volkov fight. It looked like a heavyweight against a much bigger heavyweight. It's like, it didn't look like two guys in the same weight class. Jairzinho looked like a fraction of his size. And Pavlovich is a central refrigerator, right? The guy, a bipedal refrigerator. Shout out Napoleon Blown Apart if y'all are in those streets on YouTube. But in any case, Rich, we'll kick this over to you. We got a big price tag on a guy off a couple losses in a row. How do you feel about this one, man? Is the price right on Pavlovich?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't got much, man. It's heavyweight. Whoever connects first is, it's going to change the fight or put their fucking lights out. I like Pavlovich because of the size advantage. I think he's got a speed advantage too. I don't like from Rozinho, the fact that he went to split decision with Ty. It probably should have been unanimous, but whatever. He didn't finish him, and he should have.
Dude, that would have been criminal. That would have been the robbery of the year if that had went to Tai Tuivasa. Swear to goodness.
Yeah, it was some bullshit, to be fair. Throwing the jab out against Gaziev, I just felt like he could have been more offensive. And I just see this similar to the Ngannou fight where Pavlovich is just going to blitz him with something, be too fast. He's going to react too slowly, back up in a straight line and get flatlined. So, yeah, I like Pav by KO. I think he gets back to winning ways. He can grapple as well if he was smart. That's always been the kryptonite of fucking Rozenstruik, take him down. He could mix it up there, even just push him against the fence if he just wanted to get the W. He's not fighting Volkov now. He can have his way here if he shows some IQ, and I believe that he will, man. So yeah, I've got Jair as KO or bust, but obviously that can happen. Like I said, it's heavyweight in it. But yeah, Pav KO for me.
Yeah, this is one where I'm probably just going to be forced to lay off it. When Pavlovich was on his rise, there was a few times you could have got him at plus money, taking on these guys in big swinging matches. I was like, give me that. I definitely like that. The thing I don't like about him is another guy very willing to accept risk. If you look at that Tom Aspinall fight, he's having some success. He's looking pretty good, but he's standing right in the pocket, just like, all right, let's box. And at heavyweight, you stand in the pocket and box with people, somebody's going to put hands on you. One big hand from Aspinall later, and my man's on the ground, doing the dance. Then against Volkov, he kind of pulled it back a little bit, right? Training partner, guy knows my stuff. I'll keep it a little bit more to the vest, and just all night long pumping the jab. Volkov, I don't know if he threw another strike. He just would poke him with the jab, move, poke him with the jab, move, face busted up all night. His defense isn't really there. He's just an offense first fighter, and I think that in this kind of fight, definitely got opportunities to land offense. Definitely the bigger guy, heavier hitter, more assertive guy in the first round. I think he's got a lot of positive attributes there. But on the other side, you look at Jairzinho, he's kind of a counter guy. He'll throw a lot of low kicks, pick away a little bit on the outside. He'll try and check at you with that left hook, he'll try and find you coming in. And he's got some speed. He actually has some good power as well. You look back at some of his earlier fights, the guy can throw head kicks. He can kind of mix in some different offense. And Pavlovich is mostly a one-note boxer with 5 really good minutes. And it's like, if you get into an extended fight with Rozenstruik, he's kind of showed he's willing to bite down, keep pushing forward, keep throwing. And even in fights where he's met some grappling resistance, you think back to the Overeem fight, he's down arguably like 4.5 rounds to Overeem. It was somewhat more competitive if you look back, but he's having a competitive fight with Overeem where he's getting taken down routinely. He gets back up to his feet and then punches a hole in the guy's face. He just has that kind of fuck you power. So as far as I'm concerned, the price is dog or pass. I remember I bet Rozenstruik against Blades. He got out wrestled for most of that fight. But if you go back and look, Blades' eye was swollen up like a walnut, like a grapefruit, just unbelievable, orbital fracture, and he had to grit it out. Like, he really was uncomfortable for the rest of that fight. So I just think he's got the kind of power that you don't want to play around. The under is like minus 220 or something in this fight. Like, somebody's probably getting spilt here. But I just think it's going to be a crazy, wild, swinging match, and I don't want to lay minus 300 to find out. Like, I lean towards Pavlovich. I think this is a setup fight for him as the bigger guy, but, in fights that go past 5 minutes, Pavlovich is a hard sell for me.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong either. I say Pavlovich by KO, but I ain't betting that shit. Like, the number's crap, so you should all be staying away, in my opinion, unless you like parlay and that shit. But yeah, fuck that too.
Hell yeah. Well, Rich, I know that you're the MVP whisperer. When it comes to Kevin Holland, I know we both get down pretty well on him, but MVP, I didn't have a track position. I did bet him against Kevin Holland. Otherwise, I think I've stayed away from all of his fights in the UFC, had maybe a quarter unit sprinkle on Ian Gary. I picked Ian Gary to win that fight, and then I had a small submission shot there. Took his back, did everything but submit him. If Ian Gary could finish a rear naked choke, he'd be, undefeated mixed martial artist. But ultimately, we look back, and Michael Page, good fighter, very solid record, more experience, but 37 going on 38 years of age. What do we talk about frequently on this show? 38 years of age. That's kind of that tipping point where guys start getting knocked out a little bit more. So let's hear what Rich has to say about what should be a striker's delight. I saw somebody post yesterday a striker's delight with a C in front of the K. I thought that was so funny, a silly little mistake, but a striker's delight. That's what we're looking forward to. How do you see this one going down, Rich?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do it, man. I think I'm going to bet MVP. Everything about the fight says that he wins this, that he KOs fucking Shara. The only reservation I have is like all the outside noise, and like there's plenty of it. But yeah, in terms of the fight, he's too elusive. Everyone knows his style. That's just going to be too much for Shara. He can mix in the takedowns as well if he wants to, which is crazy to say from Page because, he never fucking grapples. I reckon ego won't allow him to, so I doubt that we see that. And I don't think that Shara has the ability to do it either. So it should be a stand-up fight for the full 15 minutes or until someone gets dropped. But yeah, the outside noise, man, like MVP, he's just got married. He's making excuses already, or certainly putting in these fucking caveats that he doesn't need to. He's talking about he's been sick during his fight camp. So yeah, that's something he can push back on if he was to lose the fight. It's in Saudi Arabia as well. Everyone's obviously mentioning that. We've seen with Hughes and the I forget his fucking name now. Umar. Is it Umar? Usman. They're all cousin. They're all the same, man. Yeah, Usman. We're sitting there with that decision in Saudi Arabia. There's some fuckery going on. So yeah, that has me concerned. It's up at 185 as well. It's not Page's weight class. And when I was watching his interview, he was talking about how this one's for the fans. It's going to be a fun fight and all that shit. I don't want to hear it, man. I want to hear I'm better than this guy. I'm going to fuck him up. He's not on my level. I'm going to show people who I am, etc. But I didn't hear any of that from Page, which I don't like. In my opinion, he's a UFC shill, just like Holland. He's the guy who's showing up, doesn't care about belts, doesn't care about rankings or any of that shit. He's here for a paycheck, here to make money, here for some clout, some highlight reel shit when he fights inferior competition. But outside of that, the UFC will use him to build up other people or put him in matches where, they want to highlight certain people. But yeah, all that aside, I still have to bet him because he's a fucking far superior fighter. Shara is shit. That fight with Arman Petrosian where he knocked him out, I hate to call fucking bullshit, but I was posting it in my Discord, the finishing sequence. It was fucking fugazi as fuck, man. He throws some spinning shit, goes back the other way, throws like this spinning back fist. It barely connects. Petrosian just goes down and just waits for the ref to call it off. It wasn't a KO or anything. He could have got back up, in my opinion. Petrosian's much better than that. So yeah, I just think there's some sus shit that goes on in the UFC, and that Petrosian fight was one of them. And yeah, I'm just going to take the shot on Page. I'll probably just take the money line, but We've seen with the Holland fight, man. He can crack. He can hit people. His style is still there. He's not regressing despite his age. You know, he's 37, but he's still got it. And yeah, he should definitely win this fight. I was thinking about making Shara the mush, but obviously went with Jazz this time. But yeah, MVP for me.
Yeah, this is a tricky one for me. You know, I want to shout out one of the sharpest guys that rocks with my Patreon. Nathan was all over MVP in terms of his initial breakdown. And then after the Paul Hughes fight, he had said, he's like, you know what, maybe I just lay off this because of, you know, the decisions, right? Like it is kind of hard to stomach the fact that if these fights go the distance, you're counting your tickets as a loss essentially before they happen. You know, some of these promotional darlings, we kind of just see how it is, right? It all depends. If you're Hamdy Barcelos and you ride out 12 minutes of back control, they can't rob you, right? Like you can make it undeniable that you won the fight. But besides that, the judges are always a factor that looms over these fights. And I do think that Nurmagomedov is a promotional darling. MVP on the other side, I think he's at a different point in his career. Think about it like this. Michael Chandler, you know, similar era of Bellator, right? Like guy at the championship level, all these things. What is his record in the UFC? It's 2-4, right? He's been a very, very functional B-side for the UFC. And Michael Page goes out there, loses to Ian Gary, functional B-side. Thank you very much. Now Ian Gary moves on, fights for a title in an important opportunity. How are his UFC wins aging? He beat Kevin Holland. That guy doesn't care about fighting anymore. So I don't know what it's supposed to tell me. You know, he didn't knock him out. He's like the only guy who didn't finish Kevin Holland, right? You go out there and Kevin's looking for an excuse to go home. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to be serious. Go back and look. Is Kevin looking to hang out there for 15 minutes? He's getting dropped by Michal Oleksiejczuk. I don't even know if he's training for these fights anymore. God's honest truth. So you look back and you say to yourself, okay, we got an MVP who in the peak of his powers, not a very good grappler, a functional grappler, but not a very assertive grappler, let's say. Not going to go out there and wrestle this guy. That's the big problem for Shara. Antonio Tricoli out there grabbing a hold of him. The guy just doesn't want to wrestle and grapple. You know, even somebody who's not very assertive and not very good and didn't have the cardio to push him for 15 minutes was able to just push him into the fence, make him defend a lot of positions. So then you look and you say, okay, how does the UFC match make him off of that? They give him Armen Petrosyan. You know how Armen Petrosyan called out Israel Adesanya on Contender Series? Russian Muay Thai needs that fight. So you get a little Russian on Russian violence. My man maybe got a little talking to in the back. Hey, it would be better for us, you know, if you went out there and stand and bang with this guy, have a great fight. You know, we take care of you, keep you around for a long time. Just letting you know, how many fighters, by the way, have come out and said, Carl Williams, they basically come in the back. They're like, hey, Carl, listen, I know you're about to fight. Here's the problem. You're boring as fuck, man. If you continue to fight the way you fight, you're fired. Okay, so fight different. Okay, and then afterwards they have like nice plausible deniability. No, we just told him we'd like him to be more entertaining. You know, we just told him we'd like him to have a fun time out there. Yeah, I'm sure he can't read between the lines and realize that means no more fucking humping the guy's leg, dude. Go out there and take a risk. Go out there and put your chin on the line for us. Would you do that? So I think when you look at this fight, they're going to be like, hey, MVP, listen, let's talk to you in the back. Hey, it would be a really good thing if you went out there and put on a crazy fun striking match with this guy. You know, maybe let him take you out at the legs like Douglas Lima did, right? Maybe instead of going for takedowns or pushing this guy into the fence or leveraging your size, maybe you go out there and just kick for kick and, you know, have a nice little exhibition fight. And at the end of it, we're going to raise his hand, no doubt about that. But we're going to give you 3 more fights at, $400,000 a pop. How does that sound for you? That's a great deal at 37 years of age when you've already had a laundry list of fights that were easy in Bellator. By the way, most of his fights in Bellator were squash matches against guys that didn't even want to compete. So now when you've seen him meet real resistance, he gets into weird fights. The Paul Daly fight, they're out there having the world's most tepid wrestling match you've ever seen. You know, I don't know that I could trust a guy like MVP. And I think in the context, in the situation, in the spot, with the matchmaking, I don't love it. So for me, an unfortunate trend on this card, this fight is a pass for me. You know, I think it's probably going to be a Shara decision. I think there's an outside chance Shara knocks him out. I think when you look at how this fight is being match made, I think back to the Douglas Lima, not the rematch, the first fight that they had. How did it go? He kicks him off of his feet and takes him out, knocks him out. Like, I could definitely see the same thing happening. Shara is very insistent on his low kicks. You know, he's touching with those low kicks often. He could throw 3, 4, 5 leg kicks in a row. MVP is typically a very good counter striker. I could see him hurting Shara. I mean, Shara got hurt badly in the first round against Armen Petrosyan, but Petrosyan didn't have the killer instinct to put him away. You know, MVP a lot of times is taking photos and doing whatever. And, you know, he could have taken out Kevin Holland. He had him hurt. What did he do? He's dancing on him and doing emotes and doing all these other things. So I think if he does hurt Shara, he's going to give him a chance to get back in the fight. And I think that if Shara has that chance, we've kind of seen he could build into a striking fight over 3 rounds. If you make him wrestle and grapple, he will get tired and look like shit. So as far as I'm concerned, weird fight. Fugazi kind of, you know, optics to me. Something could go weird about this fight, but ultimately I do think Shara is probably going to get the win. My gut feeling.
Yeah, exactly the same, man. Like, I'd just be pissed when fucking Page KOs him like he fucking should, but you're definitely right. Should stay away. There is dodgy shit about it. It just pisses me off, man.
Yeah, this is a weird one. It's just everything for me comes down to matchmaking, right? And when I look at the matchmaking, I'm like, this seems like a bump a guy up a weight who's 37 going on 38 to fight the striker that they're kind of trying to shine up. And this is a guy that has never proactively wrestled or grappled a fight in his career. It's like they kind of checked a lot of boxes. Now, does Shara go out and deliver? He's still got to go do his end of the job, but it's like, They kind of tried to check a lot of boxes to put him in a position to succeed. So I think that he's going to go out there and succeed.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's have it. The main event of the evening, Israel, the Last Stylebender, Adesanya taking on Nassourdine Imavov. I think we had you lead off the last one, so I'll lead off this one, man. I think that Nassourdine Imavov is a live underdog in this spot, and I'll tell you why. When you look at Israel Adesanya, better career, better resume, a lot of great things on paper. Let's just talk about the matchup. It's a 28-year-old, going on 29, taking on a 35-year-old. And when you look at where they're at in their career, I talk about sometimes people's second career in combat. Israel Adesanya had a long career in kickboxing, had a ton of fights, went out there and did his damn thing, ascended to the top of the kickboxing world, and then he pivoted. Hey, let's go over to UFC. Let's take over there. He's had 20-plus professional mixed martial arts bouts, right? He's done this for a long time. He's now had a second career in combat, and he's starting to look a little bit worse for wear, in my opinion. The Sean Strickland fight should have been an easy fight for Izzy. If you look back years ago, a plotting striker, a guy that's going to give you many opportunities to counter. This is like the Israel Adesanya archetype. Like, hey, you come forward with shitty MMA striking, and I'm going to fucking beat you up. Strickland introduces no grappling threat, right? It's not like if you're just looking at that functionally, you're like, man, this should be a great matchup for him. The books are all offering boosts on Israel Adesanya the week of the fight. Hey, come in and bet Izzy at plus 100, even though he's a minus 700 favorite. Why are they doing that? Because they know what the public doesn't know, which is that Izzy just got a DUI 10 days before the fight. He didn't give a fuck about the fight. He hardly knew he had a fight. He's like, oh, there's a fight going on. I guess I'm supposed to fight some guy. Okay. Rolls out of bed for the Sean Strickland fight, gets his ass whooped. All right. Hey, here's the motivation that I needed, right? Wake up call. Somebody beat my ass because I got a DUI 10 days before the fight and I'm half taking it serious, half out in the clubs doing whatever I'm doing. All right. Now let's go out there and get the revenge. I went toe-to-toe about racial ambiguities with this guy in the middle of the octagon. Like, this is for my life. And he goes out there and gets submitted and kind of just looked like he gave it away at the end. Round 4 against DDP. I picked DDP by submission, right? Not like I didn't see it coming. Even I was a little surprised at how it went down. It didn't make him out-grapple him very sufficiently, right? He said, oh, you got to take down the 4th round? That's the end of that, man. We're out of here. Thanks anyway. Close the show, buddy. It wasn't the greatest rear naked choke you've ever seen either, right? It was just, I'm going to squeeze you. You don't want to be here anymore. Tap out and let's be done with it. And when you look at Izzy, I don't think that he would have done that in an earlier portion of his career. I feel like he would have went out sleeping, right? He used to say to Kelvin Gastelum, I'm ready to die for this shit. I don't know if he's ready to die for this shit anymore. I think when he knocked out Alex Pereira, he released the last big demon he had in his heart about going to hurt somebody. Like, this guy used to be a killer. Robert Whittaker sent him to hell. Now they're training together. They're old buddies. They're looking like they're ready to go on the retirement golf course together. That's fine. I don't think Nassourdine Imavov's ready for that. I think he wants to be a world champion. I think he wants to get into those title opportunities. I think he wants to take that step forward in his career. So you've got one guy, in my opinion, who's younger, hungrier, wants to be here, highly motivated against a guy who 2 fights ago couldn't give a rat's ass whether he won or lost, basically showed up for the paycheck, got his ass whooped, got exposed by a guy he's probably better than. Okay, then doesn't rush back into the rematch. Hey, I'll take some time off. I'll go readjust my life. I'll come back with more motivation. Comes back with all the motivation. Duplessis does what he needs to do, extends the fight, takes him down, exposes him. Okay, so now we're at a point where he's got this Imavov fight, and this could be his last fight of his career, guys. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about this is the retirement fight of Israel Adesanya. What does he have to prove to us? He was being compared to Anderson Silva. He was at the top of his game. What a champion, right? Dominance over the middleweights. What a quick run to the title. Did everything right. Does he have it anymore? My answer is no. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to be wrong, right? Maybe he's got another run in him. I don't think he's got it anymore. He's 35 years of age. Most guys at 35 are not building up to the next best thing they're going to be. They are declining from where they were. This guy was at the top of his game at 29 and 30 and 33. He's now 35. And I think he's on a slow decline. And I think on the other side, Nassourdine Imavov is getting better. I think that he's trying to put together a well-rounded skill set. Israel Adesanya leveraged a specialist skill set and good takedown defense, won a UFC world title. God bless him for it. Other guys have come in, replicated his success. Alex Pereira stole his glow. Good idea. But when you look at it, is his takedown defense as good as it once was? No, it isn't. Look at the Derek Brunson fight, guys. Derek Brunson was a Division II All-American, could not sniff a takedown, could not get close to his hips. Every time he would get close, he would get hit with a huge shot and he would get hurt. What happened with Duplessis? Izzy was slower. He was more reactive. By the way, Sean Strickland hurt him with a punch. This dude is like looking into the fence with 2 hands on the fence, getting punched, looking out into the octagon crowd. It's like this guy has been in a lot of compromised situations his last few fights. So as far as I'm concerned, I think Imavov is a live underdog in this spot. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, I didn't really have much, to be honest. Not much of an opinion, but yeah, you make a convincing argument to not back Izzy. It's all true. Imavov, he just slow down in fights. He can be pressed against the cage. Not that that's Izzy's style at all. And yeah, I just think Imavov can, to your points about Israel, Imavov can dictate the pace of this fight. He can push it wherever he wants it to go. He can implement the takedowns if he wants to. My only reservation with that would be, if he doesn't get his submission in round 1 or 2, if, that's his game plan going in there, which you'd think it might be, considering how Duplessis handled Adesanya on the mat. That might compromise Imavov's gas tank, and then in rounds 2, 3, and 4, 5, as the fight gets extended, Izzy can have success with the striking, because I do think he is still the far better technical striker than Imavov is. But yeah, all them points still stand, just like we was talking about with the MVP fight, that is outside noise and you do have to take it into consideration. And yeah, you're right, man. Izzy's been checked out for a while. Who knows where his head's at? It looks like he wants to start fucking podcasting with Rob now and, sit back on the money that he's made and shit. So yeah, I don't know whether you'd want to back Izzy with your money anymore. Maybe getting live if the fight gets extended. That would be a good way to look at this one. But I can definitely understand people taking the shot on Imavov, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing for me, right? We saw some sharp correction in this market when it came to the submission prop. Open 12-1 on FanDuel, got cracked down to 7.5-1. They're seeing the fact that Imavov could go out there and implement a grappling heavy game plan. Here's the other thing, though, Rich. What did Sean Strickland do to beat Israel Adesanya? He walked forward through the jab. Occasionally, he put a 2 behind it. There was really not a great amount of sophistication. It was just a willingness to come forward and assert oneself. He did it from the beginning, and he had a lot of success. I think round 2 was competitive, and then he was able to get back on the horse and dictate in rounds 3 through 5. This is from memory. I didn't rewatch the fight today. But if you look back, Imavov, he got beat up by Strickland a little bit, but Strickland was at 205. And if you remember, Strickland at 205 is like the most dynamic version of him we've ever seen. He went out there and beat the shit out of Brendan Allen and absolutely killed him in a catchweight fight at 195. So I think when I looked at that Imavov fight, I say to myself, Imavov was expecting a totally different opponent went out there against Strickland, who's like a 5-round cardio guy, and just got outworked, got out hustled, didn't have the pace to push there. I think against Izzy, he's going to either try and wrestle, which I think he could have success doing because he's the more physical guy, or he could go out there and walk him down with a jab and look to hurt him. And I think he could do that too. So for me, he's got multiple paths to victory. I agree with you. Technically, the better striker is Izzy, but a lot of what he does is off the counter. A lot of what he does is low kicking, prodding from the outside. And I think Imavov is going to show him less respect. I think he's going to try and walk him down and hurt him. Because, by the way, Sean Strickland doesn't hurt that many people. And he walked this guy down, landed a couple big shots in the first 2 rounds, and hurt him really bad. So I think that's another potential path. This guy's had 1 million fights in his life, right? Kickboxing to MMA. He's had 1 million gym wars with Dan Hooker and all these other guys. Could his chin be starting to deteriorate a little bit at 35 years of age, going on 36? I think he could. So for me, I think Imavov's probably more live to finish this fight.
Yeah, all that crying shit as well. I can't remember what press conference it was, but that was fucking major red flags, man. When Izzy was fucking crying, saying, I do this for you, for the fans. And then we're all at home like, you ain't got no fucking fans, you fuck dogs. Like, that was a weird thing for me, man. You don't like seeing that. It seemed like, you're right, this could be a retirement fight. Seems like he's been on the verge of that for a minute now.
Last thing I'll say here, we got an interesting question from Dixon. Liam, say the book set the takedown line for Imavov at 2.5. Would you favor the over or the under? I would think it's a trap line because I don't think he has to, go get 3 takedowns to win the fight. Like, I don't think he needs 3 takedowns to win 3 rounds. I think 1 takedown could be the round or the fight, So that's the reason why I think it's a trap line. And I would rather just play the upside on something big like the sub prop instead of taking a pick 'em on what essentially for me is a meaningless stat in that regard, right? I think Imavov could sub him on 1 or 2 takedowns, but I also think he could go out there and get 4 takedowns, win a decision. So I wouldn't want to get cute and lay the chalk either way there. All right. So there you have it, man. That's the end of the show, guys. If you enjoyed what we put forward today, please make sure you do 3 things for me. Go ahead and like this show. Go ahead and get subscribed and go ahead and support my guest. Just Win Baby, JUSTT. Win Baby. That's the Twitter handle that you're looking for. Rich, go ahead and let the people know where else they can find you.
Yeah, like Liam said, check me out on Twitter. Link in my bio for the Discord, for Patreon, to get my bets. I've made a huge bet on a huge underdog for the end of February. So, if you want to get that early, jump on board.
Ooh, I like that tease. Good tease from Rich. And guys, if you're looking for more information from me, I want to just show real quick as we get off the air here. This is what I do each and every week. I put together all my previous write-ups, all my previous notes on these fighters, and some of these go back a very long time. But point being, if you want more information, if you think it will help your process, I've written about almost every fighter on the card, most of them 5 or 6 times, some of them even more than that. So lots and lots of notes put together. And over the course of the week, I continue to add. So there will be more by the end of the week. In any case, thank you all for the support. God bless each and every one of you guys. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Good luck on all your bets. Come back next time. We're going to be having all the same fun again. Good luck and God bless. Take care, everybody.